Amsterdam, Edinburgh, New York City, Berlin, all cities around the world that in some form or another have imposed severe restrictions on short-term rentals, though this reached a head a week ago when Barcelona Mayor Jaume Collboni announced a potential ban on holiday rentals in the city to come into effect in November 2028. But how do we get to this point, and why is this such a landmark measure for this segment? Let's first look at why these measures are set to be implemented in Barcelona. From November 2028, Barcelona will no longer give new licences, and existing holiday rental licences will be revoked, according to Collboni. There are reportedly just over 10,000 properties that are registered to be rented out to tourists in Barcelona. The new law will apply to entire homes and apartments and potentially individual private rooms. The mayor sees the measure as a chance to increase housing supply and address an affordable housing shortage, as well as skyrocketing rental prices. Over the past decade, rents in Barcelona are said to have shot up by 68%. The government is introducing increasingly stringent regulations, with Collboni indicating that 9,700 apartments that were being illegally rented out to tourists have been shut down since 2016. Whatever your opinion on the matter, it is evident that many markets across the world are facing acute shortages of housing. The question is the STR sector being scapegoated for wider failures in approaches to housing regulation? Or are these tourist apartments really exacerbating the housing shortage? We at shorttermrentals.com set out to investigate on both sides of the debate. Currently in Barcelona, property owners must obtain a tourist licence from the city government to operate short-term rentals for less than 31 days. Those flouting the laws could face fines of up to €600,000. In the meantime, Barcelona stopped issuing new tourist licences in 2014 to limit STR proliferation in the city, meaning that the only way to get a licence is to buy a property that already has one. Property owners with licences are required to register with the Catalan Tourism Registry, provide guests with a rental contract and complaint forms, collect tourist taxes and remit them to the city, fulfil all safety and quality standards, and not rent out for more than 120 days a year if they live off-site. However, these regulatory issues are not only confined to Barcelona in Spain. Madrid recently announced a temporary suspension on new holiday rental licences in the capital until 2025. The goal of the general plan is to confront housing issues and balance the accommodation market in the city to avoid residential desertification. The frustration from local governments has also been amplified in places like Malaga by activists protesting against mass tourism and environmental concerns, claiming that the high number of tourists is driving up housing prices for locals. And in the Canary Islands, a draft law is set to ban new build properties from the STR market, and property owners with a permit will have 5 years to comply. Spanish tourism lobby Exceltur recently published a study highlighting how STR listings in the 25 biggest cities in Spain increased by a quarter between January and March this year. The increase in regulatory challenges has coincided with the industry's recovery since the COVID-19 pandemic. According to STR data provider AirDNA, booked listings fell by 10% year over year in 2020, before a 56% decline a year later. The recovery has been noticeable since, with booked listings growing 9% in the last year. But despite this, the current figures are still 41% lower than 2018 monthly averages. And what about the current market dynamics? As of May, there are around 17,500 listings on platforms like Airbnb and Vrbo in Barcelona, of which there were 7,800 booked listings, offering stays of 28 days or less. Of those listings, 5.9k were entire homes and 1.9k were private rooms. It's unclear, however, whether private rooms will be exempt under the new ban or if 30-day plus rentals will be affected. Few cities have imposed regulations to this extent, and it is where tourism contributes significantly to economies. However, the difficulty comes when needing to balance accommodating short-term guests and ensuring the long-term housing market is not adversely affected. Historically, where a demand outstrips supply, prices usually rise and could price out visitors, while hotel rooms in the city, estimated to be around 39,000 at the start of 2024 according to STRz, would not be able to accommodate the previous volume of STR guests. As we've seen in markets like New York City, similar regulatory actions have resulted in higher hotel rates and occupancy, thus creating a supply-demand imbalance that could deter travellers and perpetuate a lack of diversity in lodging choice. In a wider context, EU regulation on data collection and sharing relating to short-term rentals with online travel agencies is set to come into effect in the next 2 years after a provisional agreement was reached last year between the European Council and the European Parliament. Reacting to the potential ban and citing the incoming EU regulatory framework, Victoria Molnar, Acting Secretary-General of the European Holiday Home Association, said in a statement that unjustified and ill-informed regulation will only exacerbate the struggles of local communities and that the extreme proposal will not have any effect on the housing crisis. She also urged the City Council to engage with the broader STR industry and look for a solution that does not erode a key part of the tourism supply in Barcelona. Meanwhile, Apartur, the Associació d'Apartaments Parcs Turístics de Barcelona, is opposing the ban, citing the following points: that as tourist apartments constitute only 0.77% of the city's housing stock, eliminating them will not solve the housing crisis. The measure will lead to increased poverty and unemployment in Barcelona, affecting local businesses that benefit from tourism. A ban would result in a proliferation of illegal rentals, exacerbating the problem rather than solving it. Better regulation rather than outright bans would be a more effective approach to managing the sector. And finally, the association says that tourist apartments support a sustainable model of tourism, one that integrates visitors into local neighbourhoods and disperses the economic benefits of tourism. The European Cities Alliance on Short-Term Holiday Rentals, which includes representatives in Barcelona, has said that the upcoming EU regulatory framework would be key to restoring and maintaining the balance between the growing numbers of visitors and local populations. It adds that while there is a persistent and increasing lack of affordable and decent housing, limits on short-term rentals are needed to ensure housing stock remains available for residential use that accommodate all workers and many other residents that contribute to the social fabric of cities. So what happens next? Stand by for some expert reaction.
The challenge is how to measure and control and monitor as well the non-licensed part of the offering, right? Which is probably the highest problem in the case of Barcelona and other cities. And another thing to highlight, in my opinion, is that the model of the short-term rentals in this kind of capitals in Europe has been switching, and there is a fact which is pretty clear on that, which is 40% of the owners that are offering properties in Airbnb in Barcelona has more than 10 properties, right? So that's a different model than how Airbnb started.
Kind of this is a contradicting argument. The city wants to be more sustainable, but it encourages hotels to take care of the tourists that want to come here as opposed to short-term rentals. So this is like, I think this has been really an issue with our lobbying. We've never brought this to the attention of the city, that in fact, choosing short-term rentals is way more sustainable, let alone that our tourists, our travelers that stay with us, they cook, so they shop locally. The money that they spend on the apartment that they rent is owned usually by a local person. The property manager that they give the commission to is a local property manager. So, and then there's this argument, I've obviously read all of the arguments. To me, it's completely a political stance. It's basically illegal what they're doing if what they're planning to do, because it hasn't passed. But because the EU directive says that any new law related to short-term rentals comes under the European service law, and it has to be fair and it has to be defended with good arguments. So where are the good arguments here?
Vacation rentals are an important source of income for the city of Barcelona and its residents, and we know from our Barcelona-based hosts how much their business have benefited their community and the livelihoods of small businesses in their area. We do acknowledge that the housing affordability problem is real, and we always advocate for vacation rentals to operate responsibly and to always comply to all regulations. However, we think that the decision to ban vacation rentals entirely in Barcelona is wrong. It will not solve the housing affordability problem. It will be a net lose-lose for both the Barcelona residents and tourists. And we think there must be better solutions and alternatives to address the problem around housing affordability.
As ever, the probable outcome is something of a compromise on both sides. The sudden timing and extreme scope of the ban, coupled with the advance warning before any potential ban comes into effect, suggests that the measure is politically motivated and there was room for more dialogue and consultation. Advocacy bodies in the STR sector do not oppose regulation, but say that it must be proportionate, ensuring that tourism thrives while not impacting long-term housing supply for locals or disrupting neighbourhoods. The hope is that short-term rentals will be allowed to coexist responsibly and sustainably with other travel, hospitality and real estate asset classes across the world.